All right, so today we're going to dive into BlackRock.
Okay.
BlackRock, as I'm sure you know, is the world's largest asset manager.
Right.
They had something like $11.6 trillion under management
Wow.
at the start of 2025.
Yeah.
And to put that into perspective for you, that's over a tenth of the entire global economy.
It's a huge amount of money.
It is. So if you want to understand global forces, this is it.
That's a good point.
So our mission today is to figure out what we can about BlackRock's influence and what moves they've been making lately.
Okay. Sounds good.
And we've got a great source that we'll be looking at to help us understand.
Looking forward to.
I mean, just that stat alone, comparing their assets to global GDP, it really puts it all into perspective, right?
Yeah. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. So how did they get so big?
Well, they were founded in the late 80s, and their growth has been pretty amazing.
Okay.
One reason for that is their early focus on risk management and tech.
Oh.
It's been a really successful approach for them.
So like they went public in 99, right?
Yeah. They did, and get this, by 2020, their stock value had increased over 7,500%.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really highlights how much the market values their approach.
And that tech focus you mentioned, like, is that all about Aladdin, or is there more to it than that?
Aladdin is definitely a big part of it.
Okay.
Think of Aladdin as like a central nervous system for managing risk and portfolios.
Okay.
And it's not just BlackRock using it. Over 200 other institutions rely on it too.
Wow. So they really are a major player in the financial world then.
Oh yeah, their reach is enormous.
So it sounds like after they built up this really strong tech base, they decided to expand their operations.
Yeah, they made some key acquisitions.
Like Merrill Lynch's investment management and Barclays Global Investors.
Yeah, the Barclays deal in 2009 was huge that brought in iShares and really put them at the top of the ETF game.
Right, ETFs are those exchange-traded funds.
Exactly. And they're super important for investors because they offer these diverse portfolios, but with really low fees.
How low are we talking?
Think like 30 cents for every $1,000 invested annually.
That's pretty amazing.
It's made investing a lot more accessible for people.
But I've heard that they're facing some competition in the ETF space.
Oh, absolutely. The market's way more competitive than it used to be.
Yeah.
For example, in 2024, Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF actually became bigger than BlackRock's.
So they're not just sitting back and relaxing then?
No, they're having to innovate and really fight to maintain their market share.
So if we look at their revenue, I know that investment advisory fees, mostly from ETFs, make up a big chunk of it, something like 78%.
You got it.
But it seems like they're also branching out into other areas.
Yeah, they're definitely diversifying.
I've heard about them managing those sovereign wealth funds, the government-owned investment funds.
Right.
Private equity, too. Investing in those companies that aren't publicly traded.
Exactly.
And lending in emerging markets. So there's a lot going on there.
There is, and one of their most interesting moves is their push into private markets like infrastructure and private credit.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense with the Global Infrastructure Partners acquisition that we heard about.
Exactly. It's all about strategically adapting to the changing market, finding new opportunities with potentially higher returns, or just things that aren't so tied to the ups and downs of the traditional markets.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
Now, I wanted to ask you about their stance on ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Sure.
They've definitely been in the spotlight for that.
Yeah, they were pretty big supporters of it at first.
They even pushed companies like ExxonMobil on their emissions.
They did, but recently they backed off a bit.
I mean, they left the Net Zero Asset Managers initiative.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation.
What do you think is behind that?
Well, they've been facing some pushback.
Pushback?
Yeah, from politicians and in the courts, too. There's been a lot of scrutiny around ESG investing.
Right.
And some mandates have even faced legal challenges.
So basically they're reacting to the changing political climate.
Yeah, you could say that, but it's not necessarily a complete 180. Our source pointed out a concern that ESG investing can actually sometimes push risky activities into those less regulated private markets.
So it's not a simple issue.
It's not. It's complex.
So maybe BlackRock's just trying to find a more pragmatic approach given all these challenges.
That's a good way to put it. Our source suggests that they're not ditching ESG entirely. They're just recalibrating their strategy.
Okay, so less about grand pronouncements and more about finding what actually works.
Exactly.
So what's next for BlackRock? I mean, where do they go from here?
Well, they're looking into new areas like real estate, AI, and even crypto.
Wow, they're not afraid to explore new territory.
Not at all. But their leadership has also made it clear that they consider climate change and inflation to be major long-term risks.
Yeah, those are definitely things to keep an eye on.
For sure.
So I guess the big takeaway here is that BlackRock's power comes from their size, their tech like Aladdin, and their diversification.
That's a good way to sum it up.
So what does it all mean for our listeners?
Well, I think the key thing to consider is that BlackRock's future really hinges on how they balance profit-seeking with the growing demands for public responsibility.
Especially as they continue to be a major player shaping global capitalism.
Exactly.
It's a lot to think about, but here's a final thought for everyone to consider. Given BlackRock's massive reach, how might their current moves on ESG, whatever form they take, really end up shaping the global push for sustainability?
Interesting question.
Yeah, it's something you'll need to pay attention to. Thanks for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
It's been fascinating.
I agree.
All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening.